Hi everyone and welcome back. So this time we are going to talk about Angular certifications, basic and intermediate. And this is our problem statement. From the image you can see you are adding Celsius, it should convert it into Fahrenheit, and when you are adding temperature in Fahrenheit, it should convert it into Celsius. From the look, it's look like very easy. We just need a formula to convert a Celsius into Fahrenheit, Fahrenheit into Celsius, right? This is what we need to do, and we need to write just an onChange event on these text fields. We need to do the model binding so that whatever you are entering inside a Celsius, we should be able to capture it. Okay, so this is our temperature converter component. What we need to do, we need to do the model binding. This is the Celsius field, right? How we do it? ng model, and the value in which we are holding is C, centigrade. And similarly we can do the same thing for the another text field, and here it will hold the value of Fahrenheit. And whenever there is a change, there is a click event, change event, right? So when there is a ng model change event is there, whenever the field value is getting changed, we are calling one method changed, and we are passing two things: $event, which will contain the value, and the Celsius value. No, not Celsius value, but the type. Here in the on changed event, we will know, okay, you are typing in the Celsius and want to convert it into Fahrenheit. And here the same thing. Here you are calling the changed event, same event, and you are passing the Fahrenheit. That means when we are writing this method changed event here in our component, here we are taking two things: the event, that means value, and type. Value is of type any, that's fine for now. And here, if value, first of all value need to be there whenever you are changing, and then we can add a conditions. If type is Celsius, then we will write a logic to convert and assign a Fahrenheit here. Else, if value is there, then it is about converting the Fahrenheit into Celsius. So we'll just write a logic that is simple: how to convert a Celsius into Fahrenheit. This dot f, and to convert a Fahrenheit into Celsius, there is a mathematical formula. We can do this. If value is null, then we will just assign both null. Simple. So this is the logic. Implements on init, we don't really need this. We are fine with a simple class. Okay, so this is simple logic. We are just passing the type on the change event, and based on that we are converting Celsius into Fahrenheit and Fahrenheit into Celsius. Okay, so now we'll talk about one intermediate Angular problem that will be a little different than this one, that will involve making an API call, getting the weather data and showing it. Okay, let's see that in the next video. Hi everyone and welcome back. Welcome to another problem. This is an Angular intermediate for the HackerRank certification. So this problem is very simple. Okay, so we'll just go through the problem statement and then we will start writing the code. Okay, so this is Angular, and when you are typing some city, we are looking into some API call or maybe some mock data, and here we can see there are three different views: weather data, no result found, and this text field which is doing the ng model binding, and there is a ng model change event we will be triggering that will look for this string inside some data, and it will populate this on the UI. Okay, so functionality requirement, we have the array of objects. Like we already have mock data of temperature and the name of the city. There is input text fields, and these are the IDs which you are not going to change. If there is a no data exist, then no result found, If there is a data exists, then you need to populate temperature, wind, humidity in these respective locations, okay, because the test cases are dependent on these. Okay, so this is a specification. Let's write this. So we have this app component. Inside app component, we can see there is some mock data. This is the weather data. Cities, temperature, wind, humidity. This data we have. We are passing this data in our component using the same input binding, weather data, and now we are in the weather detail component. Inside weather detail component, using input binding, we got this data. Okay, and now we can play with this data based on the event we are doing. So in the weather detail, this is our input text field, right? Here we have ng model, city, and ng model change. Whenever you are typing something in this ng model, we are calling this city change method. And we already know we don't need to make an API call. We already have a mock data, weather data. We just need to do a filter and need to find city exists in there or not. Simple logic, should be simple, I think. So here we can write one method city change. And inside city change, we will decide like what the value you are passing. So it should be the same logic I think we have written in the last video. If somebody is entering the city value, then if value is not null, then what we will say is let found city, and we are going to do the filter. This dot weather data which we have received using input binding, so we do access that dot find, because we need to find a single city, and it will just return a single object from the array. So from each and every city, we just wanted to check city dot name, and we can do a two lowercase because we need to do a comparison, and we'll convert both into lowercase, and here we have value dot to lowercase. Always keep that in mind whenever you are doing a comparison of whatever you are entering in the text field and whatever is there in the data. Okay, so always convert that into the lowercase. If we are able to found that city, if the city is found, that means we got the data. So we will just have a one city details, this variable. This will just put the city detail of current selected city, and then we just need to toggle some fields, like we need to show now the weather data, right? So this dot hide details, hide details true. This dot show no result is false, because now we have a result, we can show it. If there is no city found, then that means we have to show no data found, hide details false, and show no result true. And if there is no value, there is no value, then we will just do if else, because we need to pass all the test cases. This dot show no result, this will become false, both will become false in that case if there is no value inside the text field. This is a simple logic, right? City change, we found the city using dot find. Now we just toggle, we need to show the weather data. So hide details is true, show no result is false, because there is a no result div. And now we go to the HTML, and here we are doing so this is city detail. If city detail is true, then we are going to show all this data, temperature, wind, and humidity. If no result found is true, then we will show this div instead of this div. Okay, this is the only difference. One of the div will be available at a time, city detail and hide detail. If both are false, then nothing will be shown here from both the div, right? So this is something which is tracked in the test cases. You need to check your show and hide conditions whenever you are doing it. Okay, so that's it. That's the last video about certifications. Rest all videos are about interview preparations, because now companies are sending these kind of assignments. Because even if you are good at Angular and React, sometimes you messed up with these test cases and you're not able to fulfill that. So if you do these 2-3 exercises, you will be good. I mean, you know how to pass the test cases. You can also take a look onto these test cases, what they are talking about. You can see it's nothing but it's also having some weather data. This is the Angular test cases, and it is just passing the values and it is checking these divs are available or not. Whenever you are entering some value, when you are entering empty value, when you are entering the wrong city which is not there, all these test cases are there. Like whenever you are entering a correct city like Dallas, then all these things should be there and no result should be false, right? When you are passing Seattle, that means it's not there, you should get no result found, right? Weather details should be falsy, all these things. Okay, that's all. Thanks everyone. Hi everyone and welcome back. So recently I was publishing some videos about the full stack interview questions on the HackerRank. Like you get full stack questions on the Node.js information and then take test. Okay, so it will, so here I am, and it is 60 minutes, 2 questions, Node.js basics. Let's do this and let's see what kind of setup we need to do. All these things we can understand. Sometimes we need to clone the code locally for making this whole process faster, because you have to write the code in the web IDE. So if you are good at VS Code, then you can just clone the code and get the code locally and just do this. And here go to the test. So here find recipe step, order processing, these two apps we have, and we have like 1 hour of time. Let's get into this. Okay, so what do we have here? Okay, we have to submit it here. Web ID is still loading. We can use local ID via Git also. So what you need to do is you need to copy the Git URL. So click here to copy, and you can actually do one thing. You can clone this code and you can start writing there. So let me just clone this, and then we will read the problem statement, what it is talking about, and then we will solve it. Okay, let's open that. So it is talking about, the problem statement is find recipe steps. Okay, so when we are taking this locally, this is going to help us. So here we have cloned the repository. Clone that through the GitHub link, and now we'll go through the README and we'll try to understand this. So this is our README file. We will see the preview. Okay, so let's go. This is a find recipe app. The request, we need to create this route, I think, and that is taking ID as a parameter and elapsed time as a query parameter. So this is path parameter, this is a query parameter, and the output should be in the format of this. Okay, so the basic fundamental of these kind of problem statement is you read the README file properly, because if you are not able to understand it, then read it once. And in the bottom there is always an example which talks about why the output looks like this. Okay, so if the ID is passed and the URL is missing or not valid, then send 404 not found. Okay, and if the lifetime query parameter is not present, then default should be 0. This is very useful information. And we are going to have this kind of a mock data where ID, name, steps, and the timers. Okay, and we need to write a route something like this: steps, ID, and elapsed time. The ID parameter should be used to filter out the result based on the ID. Okay, we have this mock data. Based on this ID, we will filter out the data. And if the ID is not found in this mock data, then 400 not found. Okay, if we found, then we need to return the result. Okay, now this index 0 is the output. Why that is coming? So first of all, let's take a look onto these two parameters, recipe ID and elapsed time. Okay, so recipe ID is 4. Okay, we got the record from the mock JSON, and the elapsed time is 11. So elapsed time is 11. So now we will look into these timers. Timers are like 0, 0, 0, 0, right? And if we look at the elapsed time 11 here, elapsed time means we need to return the index from the timer array where this elapsed time is less than. Okay, so the first index is 15, which is greater than the elapsed time. That means from the first timer index only you will get the order delivered, right? So the output will be the index, which is 0. Okay, so now let's write this. What we are going to do is in app.js, we will add this router, recipe steps, recipe router, and inside the recipe router, we will write our logic. So here we are going to write our route. So we got the router.get, and we are going to take ID as a route parameter, and here we have a request and response, simple express logic. Right, now what we will do is we are going to get this ID, which we can get request.params.id, and we have elapsed time, that we are getting from the query parameters. So how to get the query? Request.query dot elapsed time. If this is there, otherwise assign the 0. Okay, now basic condition is that is already in the test case. If this is not a number, the ID is not a number, you are passing something garbage in the ID, then we will just say response.status. We will say 400 bad request and .send not found, because there is already a test case written for this to validate this. Okay, now we have this mock JSON somewhere. Yes, based on this ID we will get the record. Let's say if you are passing ID 1, then I get all these timers, and if the elapsed time is 0, means the output should be 0. Here let's see another one. Yeah, here elapsed time, let's say you are passing 50, so 50 is greater than 15, so the output should be the index 1. I mean whatever the closest index you are getting. Okay, so this is the recipe, and here we are going to get the selected recipe. So this const selected recipe. Now what we can do is we are getting the recipe as a mock, recipe dot filter. We are running a simple filter, and in the filter what we will just do is give me the record where ID is same as, we can convert this path parameter as a number, so triple equals will not break. So we got the selected recipe. Right, now if we have selected recipe, then we will do some checks, because there may be a scenario where you will not get a selected recipe, the ID you are passing 20, which is not there in the record. So in that case we will say response.status 404.send not found. And if we got the record, now we will get the timers from selected recipe, So we got the timers from selected recipe. I'm talking about these timers we have in the JSON object. So once we got the selected timers, what we need to do is we just need to get the index. So we can write one method index by passing all the timers and elapsed time which we got from the query parameter, which will be by default 0 if you are not passing. And we can write a simple method function get index, and this function is taking 2 arguments, right? This is just going to iterate onto the timers and will give you which particular index this elapsed time is matching. Okay, we are passing timers, we are passing elapsed time, and it is going to give you the index. This is what we need. Once we got the index, we can just say response dot status. We got the 200 status and we are sending index, that is the output. Okay, now final thing is we need to make sure all the test cases are passing. The edge cases are ID is not a number, send 400 byte request. If there is no selected recipe, send 404. And now we need to run the test cases. Because the end goal is to execute all the test cases, and here we can see the tests, and tests gives you a lot of information. You can see here the recipe ID is alpha string, so it should be not found bad request. Here it is recipe ID is 5, elapsed time is 0, so it should give us the response equal to index 0. Here elapsed time is 4. So all these are like happy path scenarios. If our APIs are responding properly, then we should get the response, and we got some 500. So let's see that why that is coming up. Okay, here we did a mistake. Yes, recipe is an array and we are trying to consider it as an object. So if the array length is greater than 1, means we got selected recipe, then you need to get the 0th index. Now it should work, and then only we can destructure the timers, because currently it's complaining that timers is null. Okay, run the test cases again, and this time hopefully they all will pass and we will be done with this basic exercise. Then we can jump to another exercise for the Node.js basic certifications. Okay, things are good. Okay, thanks everyone.